Hi, my name's Magdalene, and today I'm going to be walking you through all of the basics that you need to get started in Adobe Photoshop. In Adobe Photoshop, you have the ability to do advanced photo retouching as well as removing of objects, isolating subjects, and also generating parts of an image. I would recommend that if what you're looking to do is basic photo touch-ups, such as color correction, exposure correction, or even just light touch-ups on portraits, things of that nature, I would recommend using Adobe Lightroom for that type of photo editing. But if what you're looking to do is the more in-depth type of editing that I just mentioned, Adobe Photoshop is a great program for that. So I'm going to be walking you through some of those basics today and show you how you can create this type of collage in Adobe Photoshop. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started. I've included a link to the files, so if you would like to follow along, which I would highly recommend, this is a hands-on tutorial, so you can follow along with the files that I've provided. So when you open up Photoshop, you're going to be able to either open a file. So if you're starting with a specific image, you can click Open, and that's going to open a file that you choose, and you can either choose from your Creative Cloud or you can choose a file on your computer. You also have the option to start a new file. So you'll see this blue button here that says New File, and this is where you can create an artboard to specific dimensions, which I recommend even if you have a photograph that you're working on. Unless you're only doing photo editing, I would recommend creating the document this way, so creating a new file. If you're going to be working on several layers or creating a flyer or something like that, or something for Instagram, I would recommend going this way and creating the artboard to the dimensions that you need. So this is where you type in the width, where it says width. And next to that, you'll see there's an option to choose between different metrics. So you can either set it to pixels, which if you're creating a web-based file, I would go with pixels because typically you have those dimensions for pixels. On the other hand, if you're creating a file for print, you'll typically have that in either inches or centimeters, depending on which country you're in or which metric you're used to using. Okay, so if you have a specific size that you're looking to print, you would put that in here. Let's say you're printing a regular sheet of paper. You would put in 8.5 by 11, and then you can also choose the orientation. So if you want it in portrait, that would be this option here, or if you want that in landscape, it's going to automatically switch the width and the height for you. The other thing you'll want to set before you get started is the resolution. So the resolution is important because if you're creating something for the web, again, you want this to be set up from the beginning. So for your resolution, you would want 72 pixels per inch. And if you're going to be printing, you actually want 300 pixels per inch. The other thing you'll want to decide is the color mode. And again, this pertains to digital versus print. So if you're creating a digital file, you'll want to use RGB color. These are going to be colors that are compatible for digital media. If you are planning on printing, you're going to want to use CMYK color. And CMYK color, this is especially important because if you don't set CMYK color and you choose colors that are actually meant to be viewed digitally, it's going to look very different when you print them out. So you want to go ahead and just start with CMYK color if your plan is to print this. Okay, and then you can go ahead and click Create. If you want to start by opening your file, you click on Open. And then you'll have the option to choose on your computer. You'll select your file and click open. Okay, so we're going to start off by getting rid of as much of this hair that's in front of this person's face. I will say that this is a pretty challenging touch-up only because it's right in front of his eye. When you're trying to edit something that it covers an important feature, this is very challenging because we don't know what it looks like underneath. We don't know what the rest of this eye is supposed to look like. The best you can do is try and copy from this eye here, but as you know, humans don't have perfect symmetry in their faces, so even though, we do have this eye as a reference, it likely does not look exactly like this eye. So we're going to do our best. This part over here is going to be a little bit easier to get rid of. So I'm going to show you some different ways that you can get rid of objects. So one will be using the spot healing brush tool. So if you right click on the band-aid here, there are various healing tools, removal tools that you can use. We're going to start with the spot healing brush, and you'll see that your cursor turns into a circle, and if you brush over this hair, you'll see that a black line appears. And then it's basically taking the information around the object you're trying to remove, and it's filling it in with that information. So as you can see, it works really well. You do want to be mindful of the area that you're grabbing around it. So this was a pretty easy one because it was the information that it was able to grab around was exactly what we wanted to fill in. But for example, if you try and get rid of this area here, now that didn't work as well because you're pulling information from this side of the face, and that's not exactly how that part of the nose is supposed to look. So I'm going to go ahead and undo that. The way that you can easily undo in Photoshop is by clicking Control-Z on your keyboard, and that'll undo the action. Okay, so for this area here, we're going to get in with a smaller brush. So to get a smaller brush, you can either go to the top bar here, and this is going to be all of the settings for your brush. So you can make your brush smaller. You can also make your brush harder or decrease the hardness, which for things like this, when you're dealing with faces, I would say you always want to have a pretty low hardness on your brush because that's just going to soften the edges. Okay, so you can also make your brush bigger and smaller by using the left and right brackets on your keyboard. So I'm pressing the right bracket and it's making the brush bigger. I'm pressing the left bracket and it's making the brush smaller. Okay, so I needed a little bit of a bigger brush, but by brushing over this area, you can see that it's starting to fill in that piece of hair that we don't want. And for areas like this, you definitely want to get in a little bit tighter and use a smaller brush and smaller strokes so that you're being very mindful and careful about what area you're using to fill in this information. So for an area like this, you can definitely just use a much bigger brush. Okay, so you can just go through and paint over all of these areas with the spot healing brush, and it does a really good job of using the information around it to fill in these areas. Sometimes it'll grab something that you don't want, and then you just kind of have to brush over it again, and it'll grab from some different information and try and figure out exactly what it is that you're trying to fill in. So that's a good example of it not working so well. So I'm going to go ahead and undo that by clicking Control Z on my keyboard. There are other remove and healing tools that you can use. Okay, so the healing brush tool works a little bit different in that you actually select an area first. So if I just click on here, you'll see this window pops up that says Alt-click to define a source point to be used to repair the image. So what that means is you hold down Alt on your keyboard and you see that your cursor turns into this crosshair. And what that is indicating is that you're selecting an area to use as a reference. So you're telling Photoshop exactly where you want to be pulling from, where the information is that you want to pull from. So if I click here and then I start to paint over this area, you'll see now it's bringing in the texture from the face from the area that I selected. Okay, and then you can select a new area so that you're not just grabbing from the exact same part of the face. And you'll also see that when you brush over, there's a plus sign that is showing you where exactly it's pulling from. So if I grab from here, you'll see that little plus sign is following along and showing exactly where it's pulling from. So that is a little bit more precise. Okay, so the first one we used was the spot healing brush tool. Now we're using the healing brush tool. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and zoom out, and it's important to zoom out and take a look at it from a distance because things can look very different up close. So that looked pretty good to me up close, but now I'm seeing that I still have a really dark line here. So I'm just going to go in and continue using these various brushes to try and soften this up and eliminate the hair that was in front of his face. Okay, so I've gone through and gotten rid of a big part of the hair that was in front of his eye, in front of his face, and as you can see, I've done a semi-decent job, but you can always go through and really fine-tune this. I'm not going to spend the time to do that today, but basically by using the healing brush tool, the spot healing brush tool, this is how you can go through and get rid of unwanted items or features on your photographs. There are about 4 or 5 other different ways that you can do something like this. Those are just 2 of the easiest ways to do it. So I think these are very beginner-friendly tools for removing certain areas on photographs. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next part of this lesson. Okay, so I wanted to show you how you can isolate images and remove backgrounds. So if you're using the latest version of Photoshop, you will have this, this little bar underneath your images, and you can actually just click on that button and it'll remove the background for you. So they've really streamlined this process, but I want to show you how you can do it the older way in case you are using an older version of Photoshop, but also because it's just really handy to know how Photoshop is going about to remove this background. If you go up to the top menu here, you'll see that there is a button that says Select. If you click on that, you can click on Select Subject. Okay, so that's one way to get there. The other way is in the toolbar. There is a quick selection tool. If you click on that, you'll see that this new menu appears at the top, and you can also click Select Subject from there. So this is going to select what it believes is the subject. I would say that for the most part, it does a really good job. You'll see that it struggles a little bit with hair, but there is a way to fix that. So if you select and mask, this is going to take you into a new window. And as you can see, it sort of shows you exactly what the selection is going to look like. And there is an option here to refine hair. And so that's just basically telling Photoshop that there is hair in this image, and it's going to try and do a better job of selecting around that hair. Okay, if we zoom in here, you can see there are still some areas of the image that are coming through from the background. If you go up to the top bar here, you'll see there's a minus and a plus sign. So this will allow you to subtract from the selection, or if you want to add something that it missed, you can click the plus button. Okay, so by going through here, you can kind of just click on the areas where it didn't do such a good job, and it's going to try and refine those areas. There are a ton of different settings that you can use on the right-hand side to change the way that it's selecting. I'm seeing that it didn't really get this part of the arm here, so I'm going to click on the plus button and then bring that in. Okay, and then once you are happy with the way that it looks, you can go ahead and click OK, and it's going to take you back to the main menu. And from here, in order to get rid of this background, we're going to use layering masks. So layering masks are an incredible Photoshop feature that allow you to hide part of an image without completely getting rid of it. That's called non-destructive editing, and basically what that means is rather than going and using the eraser to erase this part of the image, you can use a layering mask, and that will allow you to always bring back that part of the image later if you decide that you're not quite happy with the edit that you made. So on the right hand side here, with our layers selected, if you go down to the bottom and hover over this rectangle with a circle in it, you'll see that a window pops up that says layer masks. Okay, so if you click on that, you'll see now that the background is gone. And then next to the layer, there's another thumbnail now. So this is your layer mask. And the reason that I wanted to show you how to really do this the more manual way is because I want you to understand how this layer mask works. So the black part of this thumbnail is showing you what is being hidden. The white part is what's being shown through. So you can see it corresponds to our image here. The black part was our background. We can't see it anymore. The white part is our subject, and we are still able to see that. And you can always go through and adjust this, this layering mask. So the easiest way to do that, you'll find that in Photoshop there are about 100 ways to do everything that you want to do. So right now I'm going to show you the most beginner-friendly way to make adjustments to this layering mask. Okay, so if you go over to your toolbar on the left-hand side, you'll see that there's a little brush icon here, and if you click on that, it's going to turn your cursor into a circle. This is the brush that we have selected. And just like with the healing tools, you can go up to the top and adjust the size of your brush as well as the hardness, and a ton of other changes that you can make to it too, but we're just going to start with those. Okay, so let's say we want to bring back this part of the image. This part of the image got deleted and we didn't want that, or hidden, it didn't actually get deleted. So what you can do is you can use the brush tool to paint on this layering mask. So on the left hand side here, you'll see these two little boxes, and you want them to be black and white. Okay, so we're only using black and white. So if I press X on my keyboard, it switches these two colors, and now I'm painting with a white brush. And as you can see, it's bringing back that part of the image. Okay, so if I wanted to erase some parts of this image, I would click X, switch back to black, and now you can see it's getting rid of these unwanted parts of the image. Okay, same here. So I want to bring this part back. I'm using the white brush to paint. You want to make sure that you have the layering mask thumbnail selected. If you have the image selected, you're actually just going to be painting on top of this image. So we don't want that. Okay. I'm in the layering mask, I'm bringing back these parts of the image. Okay, and that's how you use layering masks. These are incredibly helpful. I use this all the time. This is probably one of the main features that I use in Photoshop. It allows you to isolate subjects, and you can use that for making collages. You can use that creating new images by layering different images together. So we're going to go ahead and move on to the next step. I want to show you how you can go ahead and start making some collages this way. Okay, so now that we've isolated our subject, I'm going to show you how you can start building on these layers. So the first thing I'm going to want to do is I want to expand the workspace here. So I'm going to use the crop tool, and it is on your left hand side toolbar here, and you'll see that it has these two L-shaped brackets kind of overlapping one another. That's the crop tool there, and we want to just click on that, and at the top you can change the type of crop that this will do. So you can change the ratio here. I'm going to leave it as a square. So if we wanted to come in tighter and actually cut off part of this image, that's what you would use. But you can also use the crop tool to expand your workspace. Okay, so I'm just going to bring that out here. And we are going to be making a collage today, but I wanted to mention that you can also use this crop tool to make use of Photoshop's new generative expand feature, which basically uses AI generative tools to create an image. So you could type something into this toolbar here, and it will create that image. Okay, so I've created my square workspace here, and now I'm going to start bringing in some other images to build up this collage. Okay, so I have some photos that I'm going to use here. So first off, I'm going to drag in this crumpled piece of paper. And you can find images like this at pexels.com or FreePic. They have a huge resource of free images that you can use. So that's where I found this picture here, and I'll go ahead and drag that underneath my photo. And again, we're building up a collage. So basically, I'm just going to be using a series of photos to layer all of these things together and try and create a collage. Okay, so here's another photo that I found, and again, once you get comfortable with removing backgrounds, you can actually do this pretty quickly. So As I mentioned before, there is a one-click button now for removing backgrounds that's really handy, so I'm going to go ahead and use that now. Okay, and as you can see, it automatically just applies that layering mask to this image. So now we have an isolated image here. So when you click on your image, you'll see that this box appears around the image. And then there are these smaller square boxes around the edges of that box. And when you hover over it, you'll see that these arrows appear. And if you just click on an edge and start dragging your mouse left and right, you'll see that it makes the image bigger and smaller. Images in Photoshop automatically scale proportionately. But if you do not want it to scale proportionately, so let's say you want to squish this photo a little bit, you hold down Shift on your keyboard, and then you can just change it in any direction that you want to. Okay, and we'll just place that off to the side for now. So I have various elements that I have found here, and I'm just bringing those images in. I'm removing the backgrounds, and then I'm just layering them on. So now I'm going to rotate this image. If I hover over the corner of the image here, you'll see that now I have two arrows that have a curve to them. So I'm going to hold down Shift and turn this image just by dragging my mouse to the right. Now I've rotated this photo. Okay, and so this is where the layer system really comes in handy. So I want to put this kiwi on top of this ice cream cone. So what you can do is you can click on that kiwi photo and drag it up in your layers panel. This is how you can start to build collages by just layering these photos on top of one another. Okay, so I'm working through this pretty quickly. I just wanted to show how you can really easily make these collages as a beginner without too much, without getting too in depth on how Photoshop works. Okay, so I want to show you how you can make adjustments to these photos as well. So if you click on this circle here, if you hover over it, you'll see that it says adjustments. Go ahead and click on that, and you can scroll through here. There are a ton of different adjustment layers that you can add to your photographs, and when you click on these, it's actually going to create a whole new layer in your layers panel. So let me go ahead and click on black and white. Okay, and then you see on your properties you have these various adjustments that you can make to the black and white layer. So we only want to apply this to the ice cream cone layer. So you'll see that everything below that layer is being affected. We only want to apply it to the ice cream cone. So I'm going to clip this black and white layer to this ice cream cone layer by clicking on the black and white layer, holding down Alt on my keyboard, and you'll see that the cursor now has a down arrow when I hover over these two layers. And if I left click on my mouse, you'll see that now there's this arrow next to the black and white thumbnail layer, and that's indicating that this layer is now clipped to this layer. And as you can see, everything else is color again, and only this ice cream cone layer is black and white. Okay, you can undo that by holding Alt, and now you'll see there's a line through that arrow when you hover over both layers, and that's how you can undo it. Okay, so a pretty quick and easy tip for applying these adjustment layers to just one layer. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and bring in some more images here. I have this lightning bolt that I found on I believe it was on freepik.com. I think that's where I found it. So let me show you how you can quickly duplicate objects in your artboard. So I have selected this lightning bolt. I'm going to hold down Alt on my keyboard. And as you can see, I now have 2 arrows on my cursor. If I click on this layer now and drag it over, it just quickly duplicates that layer. Okay, so I'm just going through and making some adjustments to these lightning bolts. Now, let's use some of these other tools to help us build this collage. So we do have a shape tool here that will allow you to add some shapes to your artboard. If you right click on that, you'll see that there are a few different shapes that you can choose from. I'm going to go ahead and choose the ellipse tool and just draw that out. And then you'll see that in the properties panel, now you can change the color of the ellipse, the shape that you just made. You can add a stroke to it if you want to. We're going to go ahead and go over to our layers panel, and I'm going to drag this shape layer down below our subject. There are some different ways that you can blend these layers. If you click on that ellipse layer and then go up to the top, you'll see there's a drop-down menu that says normal. Okay, so these are various blending modes, and basically what it means is whatever layer you have selected, the blending mode is going to change how it interacts with the layer underneath. Okay, so if you just scroll through here, you'll see that the paper texture is coming through and the color of the circle is changing. Okay, so these are various different ways that you can change the way a layer interacts with the layer underneath it. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and leave that on linear burn. You can also change the opacity of the layer here. So next to the blending mode, you'll see there is an opacity drop-down menu, and if you click on that, you can slide this slider left and right, and that'll change how opaque that layer is. And you can do that with any layer. It doesn't have to be a shape layer. Any layer that you click on, you can change the opacity and have it be more or less see-through. That's going to work with any of these layers here. Okay, so if we want to just make it a little bit more see-through, you can do it that way. Or if you want to actually change the way that this layer is interacting with the layers underneath, then you can use blending modes to make those changes. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and change these both to multiply. So you'll see that because we're using these blending modes, the texture of the paper is coming through. So it's allowing this image to look a little bit more unified. Okay, so I'm going to show you how you can put a layer on top of this entire image, and that's really going to help unify this image as well. Okay, so I have this texture layer here, and I'm going to just put that over my entire image. Okay, so this is at the very top. And I'm going to use one of these blending modes to add this texture to the image. Okay, so I selected soft light, and as you can see, it's pretty intense, so we don't want it to cover over the image quite that much. So what I can do is I can actually just decrease the opacity so that it's just kind of slightly coming through. You can also use a layering mask on an image like this, let's say we really don't want it to be so strong on the subject's face, what you can do is you can just click on layer mask, apply a fresh blank layering mask to this top texture image that we added, and then you can use a brush to just get rid of some of that. Okay, so I'm just going to make sure that my brush is set to black, and I'm going to just brush over the part that is over the face because I don't want that much texture on the subject's face. Okay, so then you could just go through and get rid of some of that in any of the areas that you want. And that's how you can apply texture to this entire image. And that is really handy because it really helps unify the entire image. It now looks like one piece rather than several pieces put together, several different layers and images put together. Okay, so I went ahead and changed out the image that I had here. I thought this looked a little bit more interesting. So I just added this new layer, and this one actually came isolated already, so I didn't have to do anything. I just placed it right on top. There are a few more things that I want to show you. So if you, let's say you were adding text to this, maybe you want to use this as a promotional flyer. So I just want to show you how you can add text. If you go to the left-hand side here, you'll see that there is a letter T. That's the text box. So if you just drag out a box there using the text tool, you'll see that a new layer appears and they do drop in some text there, placeholder text, and then you can just start typing and add in your own text. Okay, and then underneath the text box, you'll see there's another call out window here, or if you go to properties, you'll see that you can change the font there. And you'll be able to change the font as well as the color of the text. If you want to use a color from your image here, you can see that when you hover over the image, the cursor is replaced by an eyedropper. So you can select a color from your image, which is something that I like to do because it, again, just helps with unifying the image. So that didn't apply because I need to highlight my text. Okay, I'll do that again. Okay, now it's been applied. And you want to keep this box around your text as tight as possible. This is going to help when we're making this bigger and smaller. So just a few more things I want to point out. You can also, if you have a large body of text, you can change the way that the paragraph is aligned. You can also, for type options, you can turn this into all caps easily just by clicking all caps. Okay. There are a ton of different adjustments that you can make to your text, so I highly recommend just going through and playing with all those various changes that you can make. Okay, and just like with everything else, you can change the order of these layers. So if we wanted to make this look a little bit more interesting, we could drag it underneath the subject so that the text is partially hidden. And I want to point out that when you use these big texture layers, it can be really hard to select anything underneath it. Because this is covering the entire artboard, it's going to be hard to select other things. It's kind of going to want to just, the way the selection works is it kind of just grabs the biggest or topmost layer. So one thing you can do is you can click on your layer, and then at the top here you'll see that there's a little lock icon, and you can actually just lock that layer so that now we can grab things underneath it easily. Okay, so I can just make this text a little bit smaller, drag it off to the side, and then rearrange things as I see fit. Okay, and then if I need to make adjustments to that layer again, I can always just click on that little lock icon and it'll unlock the layer. Okay, and those are the basics that you need to get started in Adobe Photoshop. As I mentioned before, it's a huge program. There's a lot that you can do with it. There's so much to learn. They're constantly adding new features, so it's the kind of thing where you'll basically never stop learning how to use this program. But once you get more proficient in understanding the basics, you'll just be able to add on to that knowledge. So I hope you enjoyed this workshop. I hope that this was helpful, and thanks again for joining me.